that's available.
And I didn't think it was going to happen this soon, but since it is, I'm definitely going to jump at that chance.
Nick Russell has no hesitation when it comes to getting the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Get it done, get it as early as you can, and the faster more of us get vaccinated, then the quicker we can get back to a normal life.
The National Advisory Committee on Immunization paused the use of the vaccine for people 55 and under last month after it was linked to rare cases of blood clotting in younger populations. But this weekend, the federal government gave the go-ahead for provinces and territories to offer the shot to anyone over the age of 18. The NACI is now reviewing information from Health Canada, which has now determined the vaccine to be safe. Ontario, Alberta, and now Manitoba have all opted to start vaccinating people over 40 with the vaccine. Our health unit adds that rare adverse events are truly rare and can happen with any medication. Its overall benefit clearly outweighing the risk. Russell says he's not deterred.
When you look into it, there's the small chance. I'm all for it. There's no problem with it at all.
Pharmacies, which were starting to see fewer bookings from the 55 and older crowd, got crushed by phone calls after the province's announcement.
The government has repeatedly told people that it's not the brand of vaccine, but get whatever vaccine is available. And I think there is a little better comfort zone with the AstraZeneca one now.
Zeter's Pharmacy got a shipment of the vaccine last week, and with the number of bookings they are getting, it expects for it to run out very quickly. It isn't told how much it's getting when, but the hope here is a continuous supply starts coming in.
We are booking 40-year-olds right now, and I would suspect that we will probably have enough vaccine to last for about maybe 7 or 8 days, maybe roughly a week and a half at this time.
Russell hopes the number of people getting shots will continue to climb, hoping to see his friends and get across the border.
As soon as that opens, I'll be the first guy there watching a Tiger game.
Now, there have been reports of delays in the vaccine coming to Canada. Today, Ford saying he was told of 2 shipment delays, 389,000 doses of AstraZeneca the week of April 19th and 194,500 the week of May 3rd. Now, both delayed until late May. It's still unclear whether the province found out today that a shipment was due this week is now delayed until late May. So while the shots begin going out to that age group starting tomorrow, the bookings were already pouring in since Sunday. And just an update there on Russell, right after I spoke with him, he got in touch to tell me that his appointment was booked for next Tuesday.
Thanks, Jacob. CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. Now an update on the situation here locally. Windsor-Essex has 41 new cases of COVID-19 today. There are 457 cases that are active. Now of those, 121 are variants of concern. Overall, the region has had 511 variants, with 430 being the variant that originated in the UK. Vaccinations, they continue. This weekend, 440 migrant workers were vaccinated on Sunday. The health unit saying that their vaccinations will continue into next week. More than 131,000 doses administered to date, about 119,000 people with at least 1 dose. Now, the health unit says it's booking appointments for people's second shot.
So we'll use our allocation, whatever we're given by the province, to start populating the second doses. So that could impact the ability to administer first doses, but anyone who's received their first dose, we are making plans for them to receive their second dose. There have been lots of changes and with deliveries at times, but we will be working with the information that we know to make the best decisions for our community.
A University of Windsor data analyst says some areas in the region need better access to COVID-19 vaccines.
So I'm interested to see whether there's a gap and how this information can help the policymakers and our public health practitioners, researchers to identify service gap and maybe propose a mobile clinic to meet these unmet community needs.
Now, she found 4 areas that would benefit from mobile clinics or a more targeted approach. She discovered this by creating an app that locates pharmacies giving out the vaccine and then overlays it with demographic data. You can check out the map for yourself, see where those gaps are in Windsor-Essex. Just go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. And people living in hotspot postal code regions can now book a taxi to get a vaccination site for free.
There are people that do want to get vaccinated, do want to go out and be at the vaccination center, but either don't have the ride or cannot afford it or have some challenges, mobility challenges and so on. And that prevents them from getting vaccinated. So what we want to do is to provide a free ride to them so that that barrier to vaccination is addressed.
Starting today, those that meet the criteria can contact Vets Cabs in Windsor or Sun Parlor Taxi in Leamington. The Chamber says riders have to show proof of the vaccination appointment to the driver. And then when that happens, the cab fares billed directly to the Chamber. About $35,000 have been raised from community partners for this initiative. The Chamber says it will look to raise more money if needed for more free rides. And there are more patients from the Greater Toronto area that have been transferred to Windsor hospitals. Windsor Regional now has 5 patients in from the GTA. 3 of them are in the ICU. An internal memo from the London Middlesex Primary Care Alliance shows that Windsor and Erie St. Clair will be taking 60 GTA COVID-19 patients. Now, CBC News is reaching out to these hospitals for comment. Now, Friday, we told you about 2 major changes in how you live your life. Parks were going to be closed and police could pull you over at random to enforce the stay-at-home order. Since then, Premier Doug Ford's government has walked back those restrictions, but it's left some wondering who Ford's cabinet is listening to.
It started late Friday, in his own words.
We are taking decisive action on the ground to dramatically step up enforcement. We have made the difficult but necessary decision to give police and bylaw officers special authorities to enforce public health measures for the duration of the stay-at-home order.
The special authority pulling over anyone at any time, asking why they aren't home. It faced immediate pushback.
Why would you say the police state is going to take over and run Ontario? Oh, give me a break.
Called a Black Friday of rights slashing by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. This is Canada's Public Safety Minister Bill Blair earlier today.
You know, Mr. Speaker, we had just this weekend in Ontario an extraordinary example where the police were offered the authorities to violate the charter.
The power to randomly stop people left lawyer Linda McCurdy wondering how decisions get made in the province.
When you heard that, what did that spark for you?
Well, as a person of color, the immediate response was, really? Who thought about that?
By Saturday, Windsor's police service said they would not conduct random stops, a move McCurdy applauds. The original powers were walked back by the province later that day. McCurdy was worried about the power that was given to officers.
But this type of police power obviously could affect people similarly to carding and racial profiling, and maybe even more so, and more communities. There can't be anybody in the room who's ever experienced issues with policing for them to sit down and think, you know, this would be a good idea. Let's give the police the power to stop people randomly and ask them where they're going. Clearly, there's nobody who's advising Mr. Ford with respect to what that could mean for certain communities.
This afternoon, Windsor police said they can ask for your name, date of birth, and address if an officer has reasonable and probable grounds that you're breaking an emergency order. If you refuse, you could be arrested and charged with obstructing a police officer. They, quote, will not be conducting random stops of people or vehicles, and add enforcement will be a last resort.
Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland has unveiled the first federal budget in 2 years. Now, it promises billions of dollars in spending over 3 years to help Canadians rebuild an economy still hobbled by this global pandemic. But the political reality of being a minority government means that the Liberals still need a nod from across the aisle. Olivia Stefanovic has the details.
Facing the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, the federal government is responding with an arsenal of new money.
Some will say that we're spending too much. To them, I ask this. Did you lose your job during a COVID lockdown?
The budget is more than 700 pages full of promises, including a little something for everyone. But it's clear Chrystia Freeland, the country's first female finance minister, is trying to help one group hit hardest by the pandemic.
After 50 years of talking about it and fighting for it, we're finally going to get it done.
Freeland is pledging $30 billion over 5 years to create a nationwide early learning and childcare system and more than $8 billion a year after that to keep it running.
As a working mother, let me tell you, the reality for every working mother is the sad reality. Most women end up bearing the brunt of the child care work.
The plan, based on Quebec's model, would slash regulated daycare costs in half by next year and charge as little as $10 per day by 2026.
And that, of course, means higher economic potential, more people in the workforce.
To help Canadians who are struggling to get through the crisis now, the budget pledges more than $12 billion to extend pandemic supports, such as the wage and rent subsidies until the fall, then pivot to a green economy. All of these measures will be adding to the existing $354 billion deficit. The government says it can afford to spend this much because of low interest rates, but it also says there can be no economic recovery without a public health one first. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
One mother we spoke with in Windsor says she understands why the government's highlighting the child care initiative, but says it's not inclusive to other families.
While it's great to supplement daycare, at the same time, that's a ton of money, right? And it's a ton of money going into one little area where I guess my question is how much of the population is actually going to benefit from it when, truthfully speaking, it's really for just a small portion of the children's lives that they are in daycare.
Windsor City Council has passed a motion to urge the province to legislate paid sick days, even beyond the pandemic.
A number of folks here at this table have expressed admiration and gratitude to frontline workers who continue to put themselves at risk in order to meet the needs that we have in our community, but also to feed their families. And this is another layer of protection that will allow those folks who are who need to attend work, who don't have the same levels of protection that other workers enjoy.
But the decision was not unanimous. The mayor, along with two councillors, say the issue of paid sick leave is better left up to bargaining committees, not the provincial government. They also asked for more information regarding the financial ramifications of paid sick leave. Despite that, a majority of councillors moved ahead with the motion, citing greater support for frontline workers. Also at Council, a decision to lower speed limits on residential streets was deferred. Instead, Council will wait until a Vision Zero report comes forward later this year, possibly even next year. Vision Zero is an attempt to design a transportation system with zero fatalities. Now, Council's also chosen a consultant to prepare a report on a new design for the Peace Fountain. The cost will be just over the $455,000 mark. The current Peace Fountain is said to be nearing the end of its life expectancy. Now, Council also voted to come up with an Indigenous land acknowledgement statement. These are statements that government bodies have crafted to acknowledge the traditional territories of First Nations people. The city will move ahead in consultation with Dean Jacobs from Walpole Island First Nation. Council will also investigate further ways to recognize the work of Windsor's Indigenous population. A disciplinary charge against a Windsor police officer has been dropped. All this as his human rights case against the police department continues. CBC's Katerina Georgieva has more.
Constable Scott Robinson has been at odds with the police force for more than 3 years now. Last year, he was hit with a breach of confidence charge under the Police Services Act, a charge which, if substantiated, could have put his career in jeopardy. But Robinson argues that was retaliation for his human rights complaint against the police service. According to court documents, the Police Act charge came about because Robinson had shared confidential police documents. So the chief of police made a formal complaint against him. But Robinson says that was reprisal for his ongoing human rights complaint. That complaint, first filed in early 2018, alleges that former Deputy Chief Brad Hill bullied and harassed Robinson in front of his colleagues because he wanted to take parental leave for the birth of his child, and that Hill threatened that Robinson could be transferred, which indeed happened. Robinson calls it discrimination and punishment for wanting to take paternity leave. Those allegations are still before the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal. Robinson also made other claims that a senior Windsor officer interfered when he applied for a job with the OPP, and that the Police Act charge was only filed because Windsor police were upset with him for his human rights complaints. Those allegations were dismissed earlier this year. The rest still need to be argued at the Human Rights Tribunal. While Windsor police did confirm that the police services charge had been withdrawn, they wouldn't provide any other information at this time. And neither Robinson or his lawyers were available for comment today. As for the Human Rights Tribunal, no word yet on when the next hearing will take place. Katerina Georgieva, CBC News, Windsor.
After nearly 3 weeks of emotional testimony, expert opinions, the jury is deliberating in the trial of Derek Chauvin in Minneapolis. Susan Ormiston reports from Minneapolis.
The jury has all the evidence and instructions from the judge, and now they have to make several of the most consequential decisions in the ragged history of policing in Black America.
George Floyd's final words on May 25, 2020 were, "Please, I can't breathe." And he said those words to Mr. Officer.
Prosecutors summarizing their case to the jury described Derek Chauvin as a controlling officer without compassion who pinned Floyd under his knee deliberately until his dying breath.
Mr. Officer did not help. The defendant did not help. He stayed on top of him, continued to push him down.
The jury must consider 3 charges: second and third degree murder and manslaughter. And with convictions against police rare, the prosecution underscored that Chauvin was clearly a bad cop.
He betrayed the badge and everything it stood for. It's not how they're trained. It's not following the rules. This wasn't policing. This was murder. The defendant is guilty of all 3 counts.
Chauvin's defense argued there is no crime if an officer used reasonable force given what he knew at the time.
A reasonable police officer would understand this situation, that Mr. Floyd was able to overcome the efforts of 3 police officers while handcuffed.
The 3-week trial has been harrowing for Floyd's family, anxious now, like the city, for the verdict.
This country must come to terms with those that feel that blue uniforms makes them above the law and blue jeans makes them subject to the law.
Minnesota's National Guard is protecting the courthouse. Thousands are deployed, many taking up posts around the city this weekend. Schools will be closed here Wednesday to Friday in anticipation of the verdict, which could come at any time. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Minneapolis.
And as Ormiston mentioned, that verdict could come at any time. cbc.ca/Windsor, we'll have that there, and on our website or the National Newsnet. Plenty of ways where you can keep up to date on that very important trial. That is it for us right now. Colette Kennedy is going to come up, and she's going to potentially use the word snow in a forecast. It's going to be fun. Now, when you work in a newsroom, sometimes the non-news talent can really take a back seat. A meteorologist with BBC News found a way to showcase another talent. As Northwest England's meteorologist Owen Wynne Evans, he performed it live on the show for the second time. The first occasion was a year ago from home. That was near the start of the pandemic. There's a sequel performance that has been inspired, though, and this one came from CBC News Vancouver's own meteorologist. Now, that's Lee Rosever on drums. He's also a member of the CBC News Vancouver team. He saw Joanna's post about the xylophone rendition, took it to another level there. The Pay say that they're happy they finally got to collaborate, even if it was done separately from their own homes. We bring in Colette Kennedy. You got a kazoo or something on you? Because I got nothing. I got nothing.
I don't have anything. And Johanna, a colleague and friend of mine, and I adore her, but she's more talented than I am. I'm going to have to...
Where does she have time to be so good at other things, right? It's just like...
I don't know, but I hear that, you know, that weather stings so often that I think I'd be learning to play something else if I did have the talent, but that's okay. You know, you got to have a little bit of fun here and there. No, I'm trying to take some courses. I just finished a creative writing course. You know, I start Spanish later this week, so... But, you know, I'm not going to be fluent. Anyway, let's go ahead and show you something I do know a little bit about, which is your weather. And you can see here, we look at winds, but we look at the temperatures, too, to know where that cold front lies. And basically, it's coming right through Windsor. We're seeing our winds have shifted, gusty, I know, to the west. And that temperature now coming down out ahead of the front, still some mid-teens there. But now we're at 10 degrees, even Chatham-Kent holding at 14. So that front just kind of wiggling through here. Those scattered showers along it, some of those wind gusts have exceeded that 50 kilometers an hour that we've seen. Now this presses through, so in another couple of hours we lose the rain showers, but we're not going to lose most of the cloud cover. A little bit of partial clearing overnight tonight. What's way more important is what's going to develop behind this, the next system that comes in, and that's for later on Tuesday with a little bit of a glancing blow of light snow. Could have some heavier amounts on the north shore of Lake Erie towards Niagara, like towards 5 centimeters, but the heaviest stuff is actually going into Pennsylvania and New York State and beyond. But yes, I did say a little light snow, maybe a few centimeters through the Windsor area. 5 degrees overnight tonight. Tomorrow, we're only going to take it up a couple of degrees from there. So a big departure from today. Hablo Espanol, Chris, back. And then it's a couple of days of a cool down, and then we bounce back up.
I think gracias for not having the thank you. I can't. I've got nothing here other than excitement that snow might miss us.
Exactly. A little bit, just a little bit, kind of glancing blow.
A little is just enough.
Yeah.
Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
Rogers customers waiting all day for service, well, you're going to have to continue to wait. We'll have more when we return. If you're a Rogers cell phone customer, you don't need me to tell you, but an outage on its network has stretched well into the day. They're apologizing for that outage, saying it also affects Fido users. The outage is right across the country. 30 minutes ago, Rogers says it's identified the problem, and they're now working to restore to full service. It was a brief hop, just like Neil Armstrong's, but the short step by NASA's tiny helicopter on Mars is arguably one more giant leap for humankind. The quick flight by Ingenuity is humanity's first ever powered and controlled flight on another planet. The chopper hovered 3 meters above the surface of Mars for 39 seconds. Now, the milestone was met with a resounding applause and cheers back on Earth. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media too. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.